set us free. Reality. We choose to believe. Opportunity. Ready to receive. Hi there, this is Ona Indigo joining you from Oakland, California. And I'm here to represent the project called No Accordion. And world electronica music is our passion. We're celebrating diversity by amplifying extraordinary voices to create a deeper understanding and connection that promotes equal opportunity for all. We're using love to calm the chatter of the mind by supporting one another with passionate expression to share our authentic creations. We want to spark inquiry and raise awareness and encourage mindfulness. So that's our mission here. And I'm going to say that today we have a very special guest that I'm going to bring into the studio. And her name is Charyn Harris. And before I start this interview with her that I did a couple weeks ago, I just want to introduce you to her a little bit. She wrote The Art of War for Creatives. It's just come out recently. And Sharon Harris has built a storied career as a musician, nonprofit arts educational specialist, and music industry manager and tour manager. She brings over 35 years of combined experience and has been hired by Hollywood A-listers, including Eddie Murphy, John Tesh, Sid, Bryce Vine, Sonny War, amongst others, for her expertise in the music and the music industry. She most notably was the only female keyboardist to tour with the iconic Barry White and has played with the roster of A-list artists. Sharon also designed one of the most popular youth music programs in Los Angeles for a place called Home, which under her direction gained national recognition for producing stellar musicians. It was here that she instituted the thriving partnership with her alma mater, Berklee College of Music, as the first national partner of the Berklee College Music Network. As an author, speaker, and teaching artist, Sharon brings her multiple layers of unique experiences into the fold, curating content targeted at teaching musicians, artists, and creatives to leverage their skill set to create a career blueprint. So I'm very excited to have Sharon here with us, and with no further ado, I'm going to start streaming that live interview that we did together. So here it goes. Tell you that I'm just so excited about what you've got going on here.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's
nice to be here, and thank you for having me.
So you have this book. Basically, you've written a book.
I did. It was like a COVID project, kind of.
Wow, that is a huge endeavor. I admire you. I don't think I could ever have the persistence to write a book. And I wanted to know if you just there's the front cover. I think I'm going to go to the back cover. And I'm going to ask you, could you just introduce yourself just a little bit, just a little key point about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Sharon Harris, and I have been in the music industry, I would say, for probably about a good over 30 years, basically. About 35 years or longer. And I started off as a musician, went into music education in the nonprofit arena, and now in music management and more on the business end. So while I was teaching, I was working mainly on teaching kids about the industry, about musicianship. And there are so many things I noticed along the way, and so many things I was able to pull in from my own experience of starting out with somebody who didn't have any guidance, didn't have anybody to help them maneuver through the music industry. And it was very, very difficult for me. And I knew that there was a way to fast track it. So when I was over COVID, I've been keeping in touch with my students, my former students who are now adults, and a lot of them call me and they'll ask me questions. They need to know about something, or they have questions about the music business, getting a manager. When is the right time to get a manager? Are they doing things correctly, or how to reach out to people? I mean, I get so many questions. And this one young man asks me all the time, and I started to write him a lengthy email, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to write a book. And that's how the book started. It just turned into, I said, I got a lot of time on my hands. I'm just going to write a book. I want to answer every question that I could think of, that I've had to, with scenarios I've had to have over my career. Of course, with me being a woman, I dive maybe into that a little bit, but not much. But that's something that I do talk to my students about. I started a page on Facebook called 10X Your Music and Creative Career. And in that, I really talk about everything about from the industry, getting into the industry, your mindset, keeping your sanity, being resilient, things like that we really don't hear much about. We'll hear about how to get a record deal, how to be a songwriter, but none of that is going to matter if you just can't sustain yourself and you don't have the energy or the mindset or the tools internally to do that.
Well, what I like is that basically there was a need that you built up over the years, and you had this relationship with so many students, and you had all this knowledge that you collected, and you decided, wow, I want to put this all in one place because there's so many different people trying to access this. I now have the time. It's the pandemic. My time is freed up. I'm going to actually create this database of information that I've gathered for 30 plus years and make that available on a much larger scale as well.
Exactly. And that's exactly how it happened. And I didn't know what to expect in terms of the reception. So I wrote a bunch of people and said, hey, I wrote this book, and I want to get, I'm looking for a publicist. And next thing I knew, I had about 20 people reach out to me, 20 publicists reach out to me wanting to work with me. And they just thought it was so, fantastic. And one thing's just been leading to another. So it's been a wonderful journey.
I just love it. And what I love is the fact is that you're like empowering the artistic community and empowering them in a way that, like you said, maybe isn't done as much. It's more like the very practical sides of things where you're also like kind of coaching. Now, I wanted to bring this back to the title of this book, which is The Art of War on Creatives, of War for Creatives. I mean, those are strong words. Like, could you speak a little bit to that? What's going on there? Yeah.
So The Art of War was a book of writings by Sun Tzu, who was an advisor to a military general many, many years ago. And he said some really profound things in terms of building strategy. He talked about knowing your environment, knowing what kind of ground you're on. Are you on dispersive ground? Are you on neutral ground? I mean, understanding your environment. Simple things as, simple observations. And it's just a really wonderful philosophy. And I noticed that there were books like The Art of War in Dating for Men, and there was an Art of War for business for women, which I thought was really interesting. And then I Googled it, and I was like, there's nothing about creatives. What if I did an Art of War for creatives? What would I apply? What principles would I apply? And as I went through the book, and I've read The Art of War before, a light bulb just came on, and I said, okay, this is how this can be relevant. This is how I can start shaping and shifting the mindset of creatives. It's, I focus on music a lot because that's my background. However, it's open to any creative, and I speak with all types of people from, who are creatives. But, one thing in the creative mindset, there are, of course, two very distinct parts of our brain. And with having a creative side, sometimes that side is very dominant and it doesn't allow space for anything around structure or practicality. And I was, I can say I'm pretty gifted where I have both. I think my creative side is a lot more dominant than my non-creative or business side and size. But at the same time, I've worked hard on combining them. And I believe that if you can work on anything, you can have that combination. And I never want somebody to think that they should be a starving artist. Have good business sense, just know that one does not have to overtake the other.
Wise words, wise words. I can totally relate.
There's some really great chapters. I'm looking on here. We talk about luck, the illusion of luck. A lot of people think luck is preparedness meets opportunity. So, or they'll say, oh, so-and-so just got lucky. Well, sometimes that person is really prepared and the opportunity arises. So that's what that illusion of luck talks about. Mindset. I'm huge on mindset because nothing works if we're not in the right mindset, if we're not thinking positively, if we're not thinking with a vision in mind. So, I really encourage that. Conquer the green-eyed monster. That's jealousy. And one thing that Sun Tzu talks about is the enemy, knowing the enemy. Well, sometimes you can be your own enemy. You can be your own worst enemy. We know that. You can sabotage everything yourself. So that's where I talk about imposter syndrome. There's a chapter on being intimidated. How do you talk to people if you're feeling intimidated? You may not feel like you're on their level. You may feel that they have a lot more, or they maybe really have these great careers and you quite don't. So how do you communicate? So those are some of the things that I discuss here.
Yeah, that's great. I have a few questions as we go along, like more in detail about a couple things as I look through the book. So I just wanted to read a little bit of the introduction, where it says, as a creative, you have the opportunity to develop multiple layers of unique experience. Why is that of value? It is of value because you have the ability to engage your transferable skills and apply them for the benefit of your life, your career, and mankind. So that's the very first paragraph of your introduction. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So one thing that I kind of discovered, and someone else pointed it out, I was interviewing for something, and this person called me and said, I'm really impressed because you have just built up so much experience over what you've done. Because I have done things outside of music also over the course of my career, and it's kind of colorful, and it was enjoyable for me because it was also an adventure. So speaking to, specifically, prior to moving to Los Angeles, I worked for Pepsi Cola Company. And that was fascinating. So I was in a corporate job, in a very serious, structured corporate job, trying to struggle with my creativity because everything was just very business. But however, when I transitioned and moved to Los Angeles, I had other opportunities, and I worked a bunch of odd jobs. I worked as a perfume model. I would spray the people with perfume as they came in. Now you laugh, but there's a whole science behind it. And my sales were up 30% in the nation on one of the brands that I worked on, because I somehow figured out how to sell. And I realized that selling just something as simple as retail is a really important skill. I never really thought of it that way, but it's a really, really important skill to know how to connect with somebody, to get them to come over to talk to you, to get them to understand the value that they're going to get. You know, you have something called perceived value. What kind of value are they going to get from the product that you're working with? So I was able to work with this fragrance, and we had a big conference, and they presented me with a huge basket, and they said, you know, I don't know how you did it, but your sales were up 30% over the country. And I was just really just floored by that. But, you know, and I went on and I worked in cosmetics for a little bit. But what I've learned over the years is if you can learn how to appeal to somebody's pain point, and you can find the problem and you can help solve the problem, you're going to have an advantage. So the same thing can happen as a creative. The same thing happens in business. And as a creative, you are a business. So why not look at yourself as a business? You're not going to go into business with a business partner that isn't a sound business partner. You want to make sure that that person has everything in order. And that means you have to have everything in order. So how can you do that? So, you know, and in my book, I try to explain different tools that you can have to make sure that you build up who you are. And as I write subsequent books, and I'll have seminars and webinars rather, I'll be doing a lot on Zoom, especially in the upcoming months. These are really great opportunities to pop on and ask questions and figure out what you can do to promote your career and have the career that you want and the life that you want. I think that's really important, to not only have a career that you want, but to have a lifestyle, because I like to do things. I wanted to own a home. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do so much, in addition to being a musician and experience what it was like to play on a stage and play a bunch of venues around the world. And I was able to do that because I was able to put that plan into action. And I want to show other people how to do that.
That's beautiful, and it ties in with a lot of things that I've been going through as an artist, is that I've been avoiding the business side for a very long time, and it wasn't until the pandemic went down that I finally had the time to do and learn more about marketing. And I've had different people say that really it should be 50% business and 50% music making, if if you really want to take it seriously. And I think your book helps with that a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to ask you a question here. What, success, like, how do you define that? Like, especially as an artist, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think success is what it's subjective. Everybody has a different view of success. Is it selling 1 million records? Is it being able to wake up every day and do what you love doing? And for me, that's what it is. It's not, I've never been like, oh, I have to be on stage. I have to do this. I have to do, I never wanted really to be in the forefront that much or that bad. And I've had some opportunities, and some of them I was like, oh, I wasn't comfortable with it. And, but I enjoyed working as a musician. But whatever somebody wants to do, I'm hopeful that they'll have a really good shot at it, and also the time to maybe troubleshoot and figure out, okay, what's happening, what's not happening. Is this where I belong? Is this some place where I can really be? Because, for people who are mainstream artists, there is a whole trajectory, and it doesn't just happen overnight. We see, people like, of course, there's Beyonce, and who's been actually doing this since she was a child. A lot of people started very, very young, so we don't see that. So when somebody's a little older and they say, I want to do this, well, it may take a little longer, but it will take persistence. It will take commitment, dedication, and a lot of grit. How resilient can you be? I think being a creative is about resilience, and also just finding that happy spot. What matters to you? What really matters to you? What's going to be important to you? The industry has also changed significantly, which there are pros and cons to that, as you know. So a lot of independent artists can now be seen and heard and create their own crowds, their own followers. We don't have to rely so much on record labels or anything like that. So there's some really great opportunities. But I think if you're thinking, I'm going to, be rich off of being an artist and do this and do that, I think that, we have to manage those expectations, because the industry is almost like the wild, wild west, where there's, not as much structure as we would like. And I think we can still be very creative, but we almost have to be little businesses right now.
I agree. Like I never really thought of myself as a business, but I feel that I do everything a record label would have normally done. Sometimes I hire out certain services that a record label might even hire out. But that there's certain aspects of nowadays has opened up the realm, so I no longer need a record label to represent me, but therefore I do have to do all those jobs myself, which is a lot to take on. Then there's also not just the practical stuff, but also the emotional, wild stuff that happens when you're an artist, and the self-doubt that comes in. And like for me as a success, I try to, if I am going to do any judgments, which I try not to judge myself against other people, or at least I just look at myself and say, did I make an improvement in the last month against myself as a musician, and just see those little micro improvements and not judge myself too much against others in order to just keep on this creative artistic process.
Because it's easy to compare yourself to others and say, oh well, they're doing this, and how come, and I want to be in that spot, and it's really, really easy to do that, and that's something that you don't want to do. It's not fair to yourself to do that. You are who you are. So connect with your people, build your tribe, look at what you want. And that's the other thing. What do you want? How do you define success? And be able and be happy in that place. So are you saying I want to have my own private jet? But I think it's also visualizing it. And seeing if that's what you want. I want to see myself in the jet. I want to see, those dollar signs, those zeros on the end of my bank account, knowing that I can sustain everything. I want to see that I'm getting sales, but I need to learn how to manifest that, how to visualize myself, how to feel, how to act as if I have it already. So it's like putting those things together. And it's a bit of an exercise to do that. But with all of these people that are successful, they have visualized themselves doing this. They didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be an artist. They just sat there and saw their vision.
Yeah, to have some like dreams or goals set in place, working towards. So I've got this. Why do creatives need a strategy? Why of all people do creatives need a strategy?
That's a really good question. Because if you fail to plan to fail. It's as simple as that. And that's not my quote. I forget whose quote it is, but it's also, I just saw it in a movie. I just saw King Richard, which is about Venus and Serena Williams. And that was something that, their father, Richard, who was also their first coach, said, if you fail to plan to fail. And that's very true, because what you'll find out is that you're spending money unnecessarily. You're not being efficient. And you miss opportunities when you don't have a strategy. So you have to understand some of the components of what you're working on and how to get there. Because, you may say, oh, I'm going to do this song. All right, so you have a song, but what is your marketing plan around the song? I'm going to put it up on Instagram. Well, are you doing ads? Are you doing any live performances? Are you doing live performances on Instagram? How are you getting out to the people? How are you reaching people? What is your plan? So it's more than putting out a record. It's more than writing a song. It's more than putting something on Instagram or TikTok. I'm grateful that we have these because it's almost like free advertising if you can do something that's viral that people like and it's going to catch on. And for some of us, that's exactly what happens. But it's not going to happen that way for all of us. So we have to figure out where our tribe is, who's going to follow us, who are our people. How am I going to reach out to them? How am I going to talk to them? How am I going to interact with them? What are the expectations? So there are all these questions. So if I were like, you know what, I've got a marker here, right? And I'm gonna market a marker. How do I have to market it? I have to have the packaging, right? And then I have to think of who's my audience. Where am I going to sell it? I have to have a price point. I have to be clear on projections of my return. I'm going to have to think about, well, what do I need? How much is this everything going to cost? And break everything down so I know what the cost is per unit and what the return is going to be. So when you can get a clear idea on your return, and that's part of your strategy. And if you can figure out what you need to work on with yourself also, because, what if you do all this, like, okay, I don't have pictures, I don't have music out, how are you connecting? And how are you connecting on a larger level? And as we start something, we always want to grow. That I think that's like really the goal, to grow and to go higher and higher and higher. But do you know how to do that? Are you in the right town for it? Is it about the notoriety, or is it about making money from your art, or having a product, or, how are you going to use your platform? So I don't know that a lot of creatives typically think that granularly, or if they're just thinking, I'm just going to do this because I love doing it. I get that a lot. I just like playing music, so I'm going to play music. And what will happen is you'll just end up playing music, and 9 times out of 10, you'll still just end up playing music because you're not putting thought into the other areas. So just try to add, a little more thought into what you're doing if you want your career to grow.
I got to completely agree with you. And since I have had to focus on marketing in the last year, and I've made a fair amount of these plans, which have been pretty hard for me to do as a creative. I'm just not that focused. It really helps. It feels like a backbone for me now.
Yeah.
I have a social media schedule and I can shift it around a little bit, but it's just so nice to just, what am I doing this week? It just tells me what I'm doing. And, and it all makes logical sense. And my social media is starting to look, there's a pattern that's appearing. So I've got to say, I've got to recommend that too. Put that effort into the planning.
Yeah, your social media calendar. I like social media observance calendars, and I am coming out with one that is focused on the music industry. So that'll be like a fun little tool for people if they want to say, oh, it's, happy Guitar Day, or happy, National Singers Day, or whatever. So, be on the lookout for that. So that'll be coming out really soon.
Yeah, great. So let me see. I picked out, a few pages from your book. So occasionally I'm going to throw up another page here. And it's stuff that just really stood out to me. This is, what is your why? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, why are you doing what you're doing? So your why, your objectives, and your what. So why do you do what you do? And the reason I thought that was important, because I get people who are just like, I just like playing music because it's cool. Because I could pick up chicks, or I could pick up dudes, So is that a strong enough and a sustainable reason? And kind of figuring out, why is it? Are you doing it for the notoriety? And but is that going to stop you from going forward and being better at what you're doing? Because what you're doing for your why can be a bit shallow. But if you look at it, doing it for deeper reasons, I'm doing this because this happened to me when I was a child, or this happened to me at some point in my life. And I know that there are other people out there who feel like me. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right. And then I can move on to my objectives. What are my objectives? My objectives could be to touch people, to let people know it's okay, to make people smile, to, whatever my objectives are, and they can be very broad. And then what? What? So how am I going to do this almost? What am I doing exactly? And so that way you can just kind of gain some clarity. And I've learned that in business, especially if you have had any experience writing a grant. I came from a nonprofit background. I spent a lot of years, almost 20 years in a nonprofit environment. So if you're doing something like writing a grant, writing a proposal, working with venture capitalists or anything like that, the people on the other end want to know a lot about you, and you may just go, why do they even want to know that? Why is that even relevant? And but then it's also giving them an opportunity to get to know you in a very intimate way, and they need to see it on paper rather than just have you explain it. Things get lost when you just explain it. But if it's written on paper, they can go back to it, they can dig into it, they can read between the lines also. So the clearer you can get, the better it is for you, because then you kind of know, you can confidently say, this is who I am and this is what I bring to the table. And I had an artist that I reached out to. He reached out to me and had some questions, and he says, I've never played my music for anybody. He played his music for me, and I was like, okay, why are you doing this? What are you doing exactly? And what are your objectives? And it wasn't to be funny and it wasn't to be mean, but I wanted to know that he knew exactly what he was going for. Because if you have clarity, then it's easier for you to pitch what you're doing. It's easier for somebody to say, I see your vision and this is what I can do. I mean, when I first saw his work, I didn't get it. I totally didn't get it. I'm like, why is he doing this? But when he explained to me, and I asked him a bunch of questions, and he explained to me, and I said, oh, wow, I know exactly what you can do now. I know exactly your audience and where they are and how you can reach them. So I can learn a lot when I'm working with somebody by asking them those questions. And I'm hoping that they can kind of learn how to develop their own manifesto, by answering them.
Yeah, I love that. That idea of the why, just, being curious, like this idea of being curious, and that you're stimulating them to think about it. Like, it took me like 10 years to really go deep into what my mission was and why do I do what I'm doing.
Oh, it took me longer.
Well, I'm talking about just with this project in general.
Yeah. I was like,
so the next thing I want to just once again, this master your mindset. Can you just conceptually, what's that about?
Yeah, so your mindset, that's your driver, that's everything. And during COVID again, while I was jumping on a bunch of different platforms, I spent a lot of time on Clubhouse. And I would just run into so many people who were shy. They were like, I'm an artist. I don't have anything up on Instagram, but I'm an artist. But why? Because I'm scared of what people will say. I'm scared of being hurt. I'm scared of being rejected. So when you do little things like that, there are a couple of things for me that come up. Number one, who cares what people think or say if it's something that you want to do? But number two, where's it coming from? How come you feel that way? And I know for me, I had to kind of dig back into my past. I had to dig back into my childhood. And not only that, I had to dig back into my family's past to understand where certain behaviors were coming from, certain feelings, certain thoughts. So I could start erasing them and reframing them and resetting, re-recording a new message for myself and not telling myself the same things that I have been hearing from other people. Because that's when a figure of authority tells you something, it could be a teacher, it could be a family member, it could be a sibling, but when somebody that you respect tells you something, it sticks with you and you think it's the gospel, and it's not. And you have to learn how to develop, you have to break free of that. And that's part of when you become your own enemy, because you fall for something that somebody else says rather than going with something in your mind that you believe. And it happens a lot. It happens across cultures. It happens if you're a part of a community that is very conservative and you're not wanting to be conservative. There's a lot of judgment that happens. And so it's important that you're able to stand in your truth and be authentic to who you are as an artist and as a person. And a lot of that is your mindset and being strong enough to do that and not cave in and saying, this is who I am. And not only that, this is my belief system. If I wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, I really suck. I really suck. Oh, but I'm going to do this over here. But wow, I'm thinking I really suck. This is horrible. But that's talking negative to yourself that can kill you. That can just bring everything down. That can kill your career. So it's never, I never say, what did I do wrong or anything like that. There are just words that I have erased from my vocabulary. And they don't exist. They don't, like, failure does not exist. Fear does not exist in my vocabulary at all. We can't keep giving words power, because when you give words power, you give into them. And, for someone who I've struggled with depression, I don't use the word depression at all. You'll never hear me say I'm depressed, because it brings your mindset down. I might say I'm having a challenging day, but I'll come out of it. And I'll say, okay, I'm having a pity party. So I'll have a pity party, and then I go, okay, party's over. And poof, I'm back.
Yeah, I love it. It's like programming the mind, basically.
You can program your mind. You can program your mind.
Or reprogramming it, because, like, the inner critic is just a nightmare.
Yeah, because we're not born being so critical of ourselves. But somehow along the line, in the world, we figure out, I don't look a certain way, or, I don't like my waistline, or, I'm good for that one, complaining about my waistline. But I've learned how to love myself unconditionally and protect myself. And if you allow yourself to be bullied, right? You have to stand up for yourself. And one thing that happens, especially now, is that we allow ourselves to be bullied, especially by outside forces, and we bully ourselves. We bully ourselves. We talk bad to ourselves. We are not complimentary of ourselves. And that means we're not loving ourselves, respecting ourselves. And we're here. We're on Earth. However way we're here. Some of us are here with all faculties, all limbs. Some of us are not. But that doesn't stop you from loving who you are and maximizing who you are.
Right. Yeah, I get it. So there was one other, I couldn't get enough of can we just revisit this green-eyed monster? Because I could really relate. Like, it's all tied in with the ego and,
Yeah, jealousy. Wow. Yeah, somebody who, like, is setting you up, who secretly does not like you and is just jealous of you. And sometimes we're jealous of other people, quite honestly. But the jealousy, like when someone's like, oh, I don't like that person. Generally, we don't like somebody because they have something or quality that we want. And we don't know how to get to that quality. So we don't like them. There's really nothing wrong with that person at all. So when we're jealous, we tend to do mean things. We tend to lash out and just have this behavior just instinctively. It's just something that happens and something that we can't always control. But, when that happens, a lot of what I write about is being cognizant about what's going on, cognizant about your behaviors, basically, cognizant about your reactions, and, think about why you don't like that person, or think about why that person doesn't like you. And a lot of times it's because you're a threat, because you have something of value that they don't have access to. So this is their way of kind of getting back at you, usually goes nowhere. It's pretty childish. So the more and more we learn how to dismiss things and behaviors and not feed into them and let go of people who make us, not feel good about ourselves, the better off we are. We shouldn't have anybody negative in our space. I don't care if they're a relative. It's just keep your space clean and clear and positive. And if somebody says something, you have a choice to either address it or you have a choice to not address it. And if it comes up again, you're on your own. But we have to either nip things in the bud if that person is important to you, or if not, get rid of them altogether. Remove yourself from any energy that is not conducive and not helping to propel you forward.
I love it. And I wish that I had found this book like 20 years ago. I'm so glad that you have put this out there so the younger generations can, because I mean, this anymore, that was definitely some talk about, the artist ego, how to deal with that artist ego.
Oh, that's a good one. And it's ego, and that's all it is. So, your ego can really mess you up, unfortunately. So I think it's just being cognizant of your ego and how you're dealing with people. Are you talking down to people, or are you being talked down to? Because nobody deserves to be have someone arrogant in front of them. It's not cute. It's not impressive. I think there was a time when people would think that having this big ego, oh my God, they have such a big ego, they're so confident. Well, I think just the opposite. When people have a big ego, I think that they're very insecure, and it's just kind of, they're afraid of finding out that they'll be uncovered in some way. So, sometimes your ego can work to your advantage, but you want to make sure that your ego is not fragile either, because a fragile ego, which is easily broken, it's harder to recover. So, but if you don't know this, how are you supposed to fix it, right? You only know what you know. And but if you begin to become aware of these different elements, or aware of, oh, this is where that behavior came from, let me see if I could fix it, let me see if I can alter it. I think that that's really important to do and to consider. We don't dive enough into who we are as people, and we really become conditioned by so much, whether it's our families and, as I mentioned, our environment, our belief systems. And sometimes in the scheme of things, it may be true or it may not be true. And that's the other thing that we have to determine, because somebody may say something to you and it gets stuck in your head, but you have to ask, wait, is this a real belief? Is this true? Is this real? It may not be. So developing that sense of self around your ego is really key.
Yeah, I can relate a lot to just that, bringing that awareness, at least slowing down enough. And I mean, if we're, especially artists and creatives, we do have that ability because we do that in our crafts. So if we can also do that to ourselves and just have fun with it and just kind of start to observe our behaviors, and that's the first and most important step, I think, is at least being aware of it.
Yes. Yeah, awareness. And, sometimes we're just doing things, being reactionary because we're used to doing it things that way, or we saw people around us react a certain way, so we tend to react a certain way. And then we go out in the world and we're like, whoa, nobody operates like this. What am I doing? I'm just doing something totally different. So, some things have to be relearned. And I think another thing that's really important as we get older is we have to reparent ourselves. I mean, it's very rare that anybody gets 100% from their family structure. They can have the best parents in the world, but we always don't receive things in a timely fashion. So it's beginning to understand what it is to reparent yourself and not say, oh, I didn't get this from my parents, I didn't get that, or blame them. When you become a certain age, technically when you're 18, you're an adult. I mean, that's a prime moment to start looking at what didn't you get, maybe emotionally or in terms of a skill set that you can start building for yourself now. A lot of us had parents who were very busy, that were working or had several other kids, or may have been dealing with other things, and maybe they couldn't give us everything. Parents also don't know what we need all the time. They know what they think we need, but sometimes they are not able to really tap into what does this person really need, this little person here. Do they need more emotional support? Do they need more things, more stuff, more toys? Do they, what is it do they need? We don't always receive when it's in front of us. So we don't always take what's in front of us. And it isn't until we realize that, wow, I don't know how to do this. I now need to learn this skill. I need to learn how to listen. I need to learn how to deconstruct something and build what works for me. Everything that we're exposed to in our families and our environments growing up don't work for us. And they're not going to work for us. But how can we say, this is what works for me and this is who I am?
Yeah, beautiful. So I just wanted to know, just briefly, who ideally would you say is this book for?
So I would say this book is for creatives that are definitely musicians, vocalists, songwriters, anybody who is really, really serious about making a transformation, not only creatively, but personally. And if I had to look at an age range, I would say probably a slightly more mature age range of maybe about 22 and up. I have people that I work with as old as in their 70s who are going into a different career. So I'll be doing segments for women, on my website, on my webinars. I will be doing some webinars specifically for women in music. I will be doing some specifically for women over 50 who are pivoting, or people over 50 who are pivoting. And and having these different segments. I'll be doing something with the parents of aspiring creatives as well, so they can help understand high school ages, so they can even understand as well, and just have an introduction to what they can expect moving forward. So I'm really excited about it because there's so many people who are creatives, and creativity is not going to go away, but there's a way that everything can coexist, and you can have satisfaction doing what you want to do as a creative, as well as learn how to live a fulfilling life and have that career that you want as well.
Wonderful. So you answered quite a lot of my next question was what else do you have to offer? Do you do also one-on-one life coaching?
Yes, I do one-on-one life coaching. Those spaces are limited, but I do one-on-one life coaching. I actually really enjoy it. And I usually take on about 5 clients per year, and some of them stay with me for quite some time. But I do the one-on-ones, and I have some groups that I work with. I like working in the group dynamic as well. So I think if you want to really get some deep work done, that's where the one-on-one comes in. In the group dynamic, it's a little more, you have to be a little more self-involved and a little more disciplined, but because you don't have that personal attention. But I like doing Q&As, so I can help people just kind of move along and help them learn how to build a plan. So that's really a lot of fun.
Excellent. And just on a practical level, what's a good way for people to contact you?
So a good way for them to contact me is probably through my Instagram, which is my name, Sharon Harris. And I have links on my Instagram that lead to other platforms that actually lead to the platform where you can find my book. I have a couple of podcasts as well. So all of that is listed on my IG. So I would say that's the most centralized location location where you can get a slice of my life. You can find out what's new with me, with my clients. Some of my clients are doing great things. I have a private group on Facebook, 10X Your Music and Creative Career. So that one is really a lot of fun also, because that's where I will jump on sometimes, answer some questions, talk to everybody, and put in information, and I'll throw in some worksheets, and we just have a lot of fun there as well.
Well, there you go. You answered my other question, was like, what are the few things that your next things or that you're super into at the moment? Was there any one other thing that you're like, wow, I'm super excited about this one thing?
I am, and I'm super excited that I have a podcast on Sirius XM that will be coming out in 2022. So I will let you know that, so I'll know when it comes up. We're still working on a couple of things around fine-tuning it, so I can't really talk about like the name of it or anything like that just yet, but I can tell you it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be sharing a lot of information about creatives or people in the creative industry that you may not know their names, but they were instrumental in supporting careers, iconic careers, and iconic movements in music. So I'm really excited to share their stories, kind of some underrepresented people and people in the background. So I'm really super excited about bringing their stories to the forefront.
Oh, I'm excited about that too. I work behind stage as an engineer as well, so
yeah, exactly. I mean, people like you, we need to know your story. We need to things like that I think are very important, because there's a lot that goes into having shows happen and even having an artist signed and just propelling a career, and a lot of us don't know this. So it's like, how does this happen? How do we know who Drake is? How do we know who these people are? So there's a whole machine in the back.
Well, Sharon Harris, thank you so much for joining.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
So inspiring. I can't believe you wrote a whole book. Sounds like you're going to write more.
I am. It's so much fun. It's just very cathartic. It's really a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to subsequent books. And I tell people I'm kind of like the Tony Robbins of the music industry, where my goal is to really transform creatives and make sure they're of sound mind and are having the happiness that they want and deserve.
Oh, thank you so much. So I just want to say thanks for being with us, and everybody, please check out The Art of War for Creatives. Where's the best place for us to find this?
So the best place to find that is at SharonHarrisOnline.com.
Excellent. And I'll put that in the comments as well.
That'll be awesome.